Well, thank you all for being here today as Humera explains this new UIF process. We're excited to have many more schools involved in UIF and do what we can with Keen to help support your students. So Humera's all the way in India, but her connection is doing really good. So hopefully it lasts throughout this whole thing. So I'll just pass it off to you, Humera, then to just get started. During the discussion, if you have any questions, just type those into your question answer box and I'll read those off to Humera, whether it's fitting while she's talking or I'll wait to the end. Thanks, Humera.
Great, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's joining us today, this noon hour Central Time. It's 10:30 p.m. In India. I'm in Bangalore on business for UIF, working with Google. Yeah, we're going to be here for a couple of weeks, but it's really great to connect with you about all the changes and experiments that we're running on the Fellows Program over the next year. We've learned a lot and we've listened to a lot of you to identify areas that we could further improve, and in that spirit of continuous improvement and in the spirit of really taking advantage of what limited resources we have. We're still a program that has 4 full-time employees that work for the D School, and 3 of whom operate remotely. We're still a program where Google funds us to have a program person in India who can support our international efforts. And no matter how much we grow as a program, we can't just throw human resources at the opportunity that this great program presents to us. We have to be smart about how we grow and how we ensure that we're making an impact on our campus. And it's with that spirit in mind that we've made some pretty substantial changes. So since we started back in 2012, we've had 13 cohorts, mostly a cohort in the fall and a cohort in the spring. And for 4 of the 5 years, we've had 1 meetup a year, whereby the fall students as well as the spring students have come to 1 meetup, which has been in the spring. And so that means about half of the 1,500 people that we've ever trained were fall trainees, fall fellows, who got to work right away. And they started making an impact and then came to the meetup in the spring, where they further expanded their knowledge of how to make change, what kind of change they could make, how to facilitate using design thinking. And as we grow, we want to ensure that everyone who comes to, well, first of all, we want to make sure that our team is able to handle the volume and the demand that we are presented. We receive no external funding from NSF. We received no funding from Stanford. That was the deal with our home there, was that we needed to come with whatever funding that we that we need. And so our goal was to maintain level services and support our staff and support the student work. So we rely a lot on the revenues generated by the program. And so that's a lot of volume to have to take on in order to break even from NSF funding that we once enjoyed. And to be able to manage that amount of that number of campuses and take in that volume, it's been quite a feat. Our training is very consistently 60 to 70 campuses a cycle, 260 candidates going through training, and each cycle is pretty intense, from collecting applications, reviewing those applications, putting people through training, reviewing their work, and then launching them, doing all the PR and communications. And we found ourselves doing that year round, which didn't leave a lot of time for working directly with the campuses, for getting to know what was happening on the ground, for providing the coaching and mentoring that was needed, for coming up with unique and tools like the D Challenge, which we just prototyped from this last meetup, which has been hugely successful in the month that has been out in the real world. So we decided that the right thing to do was to hone in on one cycle a year and hone in on that fall cycle so that campuses would recruit and screen and find students in the spring. And they would have, for this year, a May 21st deadline. We would take that in, interview students and accept them sometime in the June, July timeframe. And they would begin their training as they would in any fall cycle, which starts around the week of Labor Day and runs for the 6 weeks that follow. We take a week to review materials and just make sure that people's the research they've done is sound, their YouTube videos look good, their team is solid in being launched and unveiled as University Innovation Fellows. So that will take place in October. So that is the one cycle a year. We'll no longer have an October deadline for a spring cycle. So that's one big change. The second big change is to make sure that your funding and your support of their attending the Silicon Valley Meetup is going towards students who really deserve to go, who are serious about making change on campus, and to make sure that we are investing the hard work of holding a Silicon Valley Meetup on students who are really there to learn and really there to make an impact when they return back to your campus. We are instituting another step, and that is that by December 21st, it's like the last week before the holidays, they have to complete some kind of status update that we'll send them. And essentially they have to show us that they did something. We want to see what they've done. So they had a project idea in mind. Maybe that project worked, maybe it didn't. Maybe they built yet another more advanced prototype beyond the one that we asked them to do in training. Maybe they've had meetings, they've engaged new campus partners. Many fellows have an impact in that first 8 weeks following launch. And we just want to set that bar high and ensure that all fellows make an impact in that first 8 weeks. And we feel as though if we ask them to do that, they are going to do that. So our goal would be that 100% of students had some kind of impact or learning in that first fall semester. And when we see that they did something or learned something and it's substantive, and we get the reviews from you and their UI guides, which I'll say a little bit more about in a minute, then we'll give them an invitation to come to the Silicon Valley Meetup, which will be in the March 2019 timeframe, as usual. So those are the big changes. One cycle a year, deadline May 21st. After they're launched as a University Innovation Fellow, they have to show that they've done something on their campus before they get an invitation to us, from us to come to the Silicon Valley Meetup. Beyond that, we have also introduced an Eastern Hemisphere meetup. It applies mostly to students who are in the Eastern Hemisphere. Of course, we won't prohibit anyone who's not from the Eastern Hemisphere from coming. We're prototyping that next week in India. Essentially, we are going to replicate the Silicon Valley meetup, except in another place. And this year will be in Bangalore, maybe next year will be in Australia, not sure. But we're gonna prototype what that's like to hold this kind of learning experience in a place other than the D School and Stanford, but to have it be equally amazing and also help level out the demand of how many people come to a meetup and how many people can physically fit in the D school. So that's another big change. And the last thing that I'll mention is what I alluded to earlier, which is a new role for a previously trained fellow, call it a senior innovation fellow, called the UI guide. So rather than have a fellow who will interview a campus and tell us what they learned about that campus and give us a go or no go, and then have yet another fellow who works with them through the online training and mentors them and provides them with feedback on their work, and then in the future inspiring them. This time we're recruiting through an application-based process a good number of UI guides. So we're aiming for somewhere between 25 and 50 UI guides, and each of those UI guides will be assigned about 2 campuses, between 2 and 3 campuses. And they will be responsible for interviewing your campus, giving us that go, no go, but then also continuing on and coaching that team through the online training. And once launched, coaching that team to make a great impact at your school. We're going to try to organize those individuals by region so that there can be some synergies. UI guides can connect with one another and take advantage of regional resources. And so we're going to prototype what that looks like. It's an 18-month position. So students would begin their work with the interview that would take place this June and continue on after fellows were launched in October to like a full year following that, so that they're really there for that team. So we're picking the fellows we have really relied on in the past, who we know are solid, and assigning them to your campuses. I'll stop there and see if there are any questions about any of what I just said. I know I just threw a lot of information at you.
Thanks, Humera. So with the added meetup in the Eastern Hemisphere, can anybody attend that, or just people who are located in that area?
So anyone can attend the Eastern Hemisphere meetup. This time around, we're prototyping that only fellows who have never attended a Silicon Valley meetup can attend that, because we really want to measure whether or not it was a true transformative experience for that student in the same way that the Silicon Valley meetup has been. So unlike the regional meetups where you can come to as many, and we encourage people to come to all, it's very possible that we may limit it to those people who have never attended a meetup, just so that everyone's going through the same shared experience of learning 6 hats, spaces, how to facilitate, all the things that we bring to the meetup. So they're attending that from scratch.
Okay. And here's another one. So the UI guide position is a new opportunity for past fellows. Will there be an application process?
Yes, indeed. There has been an application process. We announced that to our all previously trained fellows when we went live with these big changes, and it was simultaneous. So it was the first week in March when that blog post came out. Prior to the public blog post going out, we communicated with all fellows and had very vibrant discussions behind the scenes and talked about a lot of the issues that they face going through the various parts of the process, and they gave us a lot of input. And they also gave us a lot of great input into UI guides and loved the concept. So we gave them a big heads up. And then after the Silicon Valley meetup this year, we put out the application, and we got a lot of applications. a lot of applications from students who had just gone to a Silicon Valley meetup, which is not surprising because they're especially excited to jump right in and give back. But we really want to not accept those folks. We want them to go back to their campuses and focus on doing right by their campuses and really show that they understand campus change and have, can mentor from a basis of strength by having really done it. We had a deadline of April 14th, which we're kind of sort of extending, and we're going back to a lot of other previously trained fellows that perhaps didn't yet, either wasn't on their radar screen or perhaps they didn't think it was for them, and tapping them on the shoulder and saying, have you thought about this opportunity, because we think you'd be perfect for it. So if you have a university innovation fellow who's been previously trained, even if they are an alum of your institution, they're not an alum for us. So once a fellow, always a fellow. And in fact, it's quite powerful to have alum from your own institution stay connected with new fellows on your campus. They have a vested interest in ensuring that your campus is successful. And where possible, we will try to make those matches happen.
Okay. Lots of good questions coming in. And for those who joined the conversation later, if you have a question, you can just type that into the question entry box and I'll read it off to Humera. Okay, next question. Given the shift to a spring application, we always applied in the fall for the spring cohort. What can our present UIF circle do in 2018-19 with the larger community if we do not have a new cohort application this spring?
Well, first I would urge you to do whatever possible to try to get an application for this round so that you can align cycles. We will help you in whatever way you can see possible. But in the meantime, I would urge you to consider your current cohort and even your previous cohorts. We really do believe once a fellow, always a fellow. And we set an expectation with students that they should not see this as a one-year term, because in fact, most of their traction is gained in year two when they've demonstrated that they've done what they said they're going to do and that they're really in it to make an impact. So I would get all of them engaged in the process of working with students on your campus and sort of silently spotting the students who consistently show up, who do what they say they're going to do, who are not overextended, who are super passionate about reaching others and helping activate them with this entrepreneurial mindset, just as they found themselves activated. Students will know who they are, right? Those fellows will know who make great prospects. And I feel like we don't utilize them enough in identifying their successors. So finding those individuals and then urging them to apply and keeping them engaged throughout the year until the process comes when they will apply and become fellows themselves. And always thinking with the eye towards, once trained, they should have at least a year and a half, if not more, to make an impact. So at this juncture, if you're going to miss this cycle, then you probably want your current fellows to start looking at those first years and have a plan for them to be applying in their sophomore year, at the latest their junior year.
An extension onto this question, is it possible to allow some members of an existing cohort to participate in a second meeting?
So I'm gathering that by second meeting, you're saying a second meetup. Is just as
Yes.
a clarifying question. Is that true?
Meetup was written.
Okay. Okay, great. So we, for UI5, we opened it up to all fellows who have ever been trained because it was our 5-year celebration, and we really wanted to bring as many alums back as possible. And about 140 took us up on that offer, and that was really awesome. That's 140 out of it was 1,200 at the time, and every year, 1 or 2 fellows will crash the meetup. And we never want to broadly advertise that because we do have capacity constraints, but it doesn't break anything. And we're always excited to see the fellows, and we love that they love coming back. So I won't give you an official yes or no. How's that? But maybe you could read between the lines that that the sky won't fall, and but we just can't openly advertise it because we got to be able to manage the volume somehow.
Sounds good. Okay, another question here. Can you explain a bit more about the UIF application process for a campus new to the program? For example, regarding the UIF team composition, should the students nominated come together as a team prior to application submission, or is team building part of the UIF program?
That's an excellent question. And let's make note also that there is something new about the application process in that we have a new tool, even newer than the one that we had this last fall. So let me just make note of this. App process, team building, and new tool. I think I got that all. So what goes into an app? Actually, let me start with the team question. So different campuses have done it different ways. In the best case scenario, we see teams that are selected by fellows who, because they know word on the street that student. They know that that student has been showing up, that they are the real deal in terms of committed to campus change and service in service of other students on their campus. So they should be a community that already knows one another. If that isn't the case, then having faculty see themselves as the connector, the faculty are tapping the students on the shoulder and identifying who they are, or asking their colleagues from other departments and identifying prospects and pulling together that team, then it would be great to have that student team knowing who one another is, meeting one another, getting to know that they are really going to need to be a cohesive team in the application, in their research during training, in their making an impact on campus. And maybe, as you're going through that process, even before the application, you can spot whether there's any disconcerting dynamics, or whether you see that someone is just not of the team nature. That does not work well. That would be a big red flag. That would help you say, okay, well, maybe this person actually shouldn't apply, and find someone else in that person's place. So whatever you can do to help that team gel, feel part of a greater mission, to in service of your campus, and as a partner in crime to you, that would really help things. And then there's the application process, and so for about 12 cycles, we have used Google Forms or something like that. So it's a very manual process of receiving a faculty person's application, receiving the student's application, having the faculty member email us the letter of support from the president or VP level person, having the students ensure that their letters of support got to us. And then on the back end, we would have all of these different data points that we would have to find and sew together to say, okay, is this application complete, before we were able to have an interview. And that's, a function of our very scrappy early beginnings, and our finally pivoting, finally tuning the process every step of the way. Last semester, we experimented for the first time with using a system that allowed for a campus application. So that system had many flaws with it. It was borrowed from the business plan community, basically. So instead of teams submitting business plans, we had you as teams submitting applications. So faculty would start the application, and then students would add information to it, and you would upload information, and then we would then share it with reviewers or interviewers, and they would input information. And there were many parts of the problem of the tool that didn't work for us, and we admittedly were terrible about giving you enough of a heads up that it was a change in the tool, and telling you how to use it, and give you lots of easy to use tools on how to navigate that system. This cycle, we invested a lot of time in creating a new, more robust application system. It's Salesforce based. It's something that foundations use to collect grants and review grants with external reviewers. So it is also a team-based process. It starts with a faculty member creating an account and opening an application. And from within that tool, entering in the names of the students and their email addresses, which automatically triggers an invitation to the students and provides them a link to go to the application that you started, from which they are able to go to their student application page. They are also able to go to a recommender page where they input 3 email addresses of people who will write them recommendations. And that will trigger an automatic email to the recommenders that gets tagged back to the application. This comprehensive application has the faculty application built into it. It has the place where you would pay the program fee. It also has a new section that is sort of the institutional section, which allows you to enter in some information about your campus and its innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. We did that because in the future, we predict that we'll have more campuses applying than we'll be able to accept. And we want to be able to know that campuses are making, that campuses...
It's 11 o'clock.
My apologies, that's my computer clock. That campuses are really serious about change, and that they're utilizing their fellows in a good way, and not just throwing more fellows at a problem, but rather supporting them and getting the results out of the fellows that we would like to see. So we want to make sure that we're tracking how an ecosystem is progressing. So there's that piece of the institutional page. And then there's some tactical things that we want to collect up front and get out of the way, so that we're not coming back at you lots of times for information. And that is information about your communications person. To whom should we send the press release from the D School that you have new University Innovation Fellows? So knowing that up front, your campus's Twitter handle, so that when that wonderful day comes, we're able to do some social media and shed some great spotlight and energy your way. And then also the pinning kit. Who should we be mailing the pinning kit to, so that we can get it into the right hands as quickly as possible, and support your efforts to do that work. So that's the application process. Because it's entirely connected to a Salesforce backend that allows us to look at things more comprehensively, we'll be able to review it for comprehensiveness more quickly. We'll be able to get it into reviewers, the UI guides hands more quickly. We'll be able to move them through the process a lot more quickly. And you have a portal that you can go to that gives you an idea of the status of your application. So you don't have to ping us to find out, hey, did you get that letter? And we can just have you in the driver's seat every step of the way. So that's the application process. So yes, start to work on the teamness right away. We'll take over when we get them. We have a new tool. That tool will enable us also to send you some status updates throughout the online training process, so that we can intervene early if there's any observations about team members or anything that we should know. We're excited about the use of the tool to do many things that we have not thought of before. So,
yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I have 2 more questions written right now. So if anybody else has a question, make sure to type that in. So one is, as a newbie, what is a pinning kit?
great question. Not in the common vernacular. So a pinning kit is very simply a package that we send you that has a little itty bitty circular University Innovation Fellows pin. And it has a copy of the manifesto, it has a congratulatory letter, it has some photographs of other pinning ceremonies that have taken place on different campuses. In fact, there's a great Flickr album you can get to from our website that shows you different photos of pinning ceremonies. And that little $1 or $2 pin is less about like, oh, you're now a part of this club, and more so an opportunity for you to recognize the students for the hard work that they went through in online training. It is quite a bit of work, and they really have to show their commitment to this work. And perhaps even more importantly, it's a great opportunity for you to put a spotlight on innovation and entrepreneurship on your campus, on aspiring for even more change and further enhancement to your ecosystem. So being able to invite a few administrative leaders or campus leaders, be able to pin the students in their presence, take a photo up even, and just an opportunity to put a spotlight on your efforts, which oftentimes results in more visibility for you on campus, and also really solidifies to the students, if they didn't already know, that you're counting on them to make good on their commitment to change and really see their projects to life, and the gravity of that, how important that is to you and the campus.
Okay. And last question here. So if you do have another question, make sure to type it now. So going back to the status report update in December, how much turnaround time do you think that's going to take for you to be able to get back to students and let them know if they're cleared to attend the meetup or not?
We thought long and hard about what this deadline should be, because we wanted to give the students as much runway as possible to make an impact. But we also wanted to be realistic about how much time it would take us to go through all of those. And we intend to fully utilize our UI guides for the review of the material that they submit to us. And the reason we know that that is important is because you are probably going to be waiting to purchase plane tickets and make hotel arrangements until after you get word that they're actually invited or not. So our goal is to get word out by the end of January. And we think that that will work and that will be feasible, because when we had a spring cohort, we would launch them around the 3rd week in February. Now, yes, that's cutting it a little bit close. That's about 3 to 4 weeks away from the spring meetup. But for 5 years, that worked for people. So we're hoping that the extra few weeks will be even better from a financial savings standpoint. So end of January is what we are going to shoot for. And the other thing is, it's a rolling process. So we'll probably get that status update form out way sooner than December 21st. In fact, maybe even have it out there as of their launch date, even the end of October, middle to end of October, so that they can go to it and add information as it happens, keep us posted on progress as it happens, so that if it's clear that that this campus has already made an impact and it's before Thanksgiving, then we should be able to trigger an invitation. Can't make any promises, this is the first time around, but in an ideal world, that would be the case. We would have all the tools out there for students to communicate to us what they were doing, and we would have this be a rolling process so that we're not reviewing, hundreds of status updates in the month of January, but rather, just 20 or 30 a week. We'll see.
Okay, sounds good. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I guess we can have this call come to an end. Humera, if people think of any questions once this call closes, is the best thing for them to do email you?
Yes, they can email me. The easiest email to remember, actually, I'll say humera@universityinnovation.org is the email address that many of you have for me. Feel free to continue to use that. I have my cell phone number in every email that I send you, so you should feel free to call it or text me, and I will get back to you as promptly as I can. That number is 413-222-5400, and I'm always happy to hear from you. I always try to make a hop on a video conference when you say that you might need some more information. Happy to do that. So just let me know and we'll make something happen.
Thanks for being so accommodating. And a couple comments just popped up that said thank you. Well, I guess we'll let
You're very welcome.
I guess we'll let you all get on with your day. Thanks very much for tuning in, and especially thank you, Humera. It's what, 11 p.m. in India right now?
It is almost time for bed.
Appreciate it. Well, anything else to leave everybody with?
Just that we see that the students are making a difference. We want to support them as they continue to make a difference. We're moving the needle, as people at NSF have said to us, and we love being partners with you in this effort. So whatever we can do to further strengthen the program and continue to enhance the things that we do, our door is always open, and thank you so much for participating in this partnership with us.